All right. Thanks for jumping on to the Modern Merchant podcast today. I'm your host, Austin. With me, as always, I have the CEO of Flxpoint, Travis. And we got a really special guest today and a really fun episode. So today, our special guest is Jay from Bold Commerce. So just a quick little bio about Bold Commerce. Bold Commerce was named one of North America's fastest growing tech companies. And you guys provide apps to over 90,000 brands in 170 countries around the world. That's awesome. Jay, thanks for jumping on. We really appreciate it.
Oh man, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, and give us a quick little bio about yourself. A little plug about what Bold Commerce does.
Yeah, so we started in 2012. I've been a merchant actually since 1998. I launched my first store. I don't look that old, I know, but and then around 2010, started looking at building some solutions to actually work for our stores and our brands. And that turned into Bold in 2012. The first app we launched it was actually quite simple at the time. It was an upsell solution to, it was very simple. You click add to cart and an upsell comes up. You're buying a leather jacket, recommends a leather treatment kit or something like that. Of course, that's evolved and changed and over the years a ton, but I guess long story short, we can get into some of that, but 2012, we launched that. It went quite well. And we've built many more apps and solutions since then. We have close to 20 of them. We really evolved into, we call ourselves a checkout experience company. So we build a lot of tools that around the checkout. Subscriptions is a big part of that. We have a checkout itself. Like price rules engines to handle like dynamic pricing and really like unique promotions for brands. And yeah, we've been very fortunate. Like timing was good and we started off in my basement. And I think today we're close to 500. I don't know exactly, but close to 500 people and spread out across, I'm in Canada, but we have staff now all over North America. And especially since this pandemic hit, now we're hiring everywhere. So
nice. Yeah. And I listened to you. We'll talk a little bit about your Own Your Commerce podcast, because you run a podcast as well. And I was listening to when you had Harley on from Shopify. Nice. and it was funny. It's like right at the beginning, it was like, I love the story of both of you guys like starting out as a merchant. And then that's what exploded, him for Shopify and you guys for Bold Commerce. So take us back to that start. What did that look like? You hit on it a little bit, but let's go into a little bit more detail. So you're a merchant selling. What were you selling?
Archery supplies of all things, right? Cool. So I grew up in a family business when I was 13 and I got really big into archery. And I got big into archery when I was 11. When I was 13, my dad said, Jay, how about I quit my job, remortgage the house, and we started an archery store. So it had like 24 lanes, and there was a pro shop, and we gave lessons, and we sold bows and arrows. And it's actually still around. Like the business is 30 years old; it's still going. But I grew up working in retail my whole life. When I was 18, this was 1998. People were starting to kind of sell online. Like the first website I built was using Microsoft Front Page. It didn't even have a checkout. Like we put prices on things. I remember I bought a big cell phone and I had the phone number on the website, and I'd bring the cell phone around to parties in case someone wanted to place an order. And I remember the first order I got, someone called and ordered like a $600 bow over the phone. And I jotted down the credit card information and address and, shipped it out the next day. So fast forward a whole bunch. Like I ended up, I've sold on almost every platform. In 2009, I kind of heard about Shopify, and it was coincidentally an email from MailChimp, said we're now integrated with Shopify, and now MailChimp is no longer integrated with Shopify. But anyways, that I kind of said, oh, what's Shopify all about? Clicked, and I had a few different brands, and so I migrated one onto Shopify just to kind of play around with it, because at the time it looked like the sites looked very modern. Like that was one of the things Shopify got right really early on. Like their theme store was you could start a site and have like a respectable looking store, and it stood out, and that was helping brands win. Like now that's kind of table stakes, but back then it was everything looked like those GeoCities with like really long lists of categories down one side and very outdated. So I moved a store onto there, and then, they had this concept of an app store, and it was very, very like, I think when they had like maybe 20 apps in it. They were all integration apps. They were all like integrate with UPS, integrate with QuickBooks, integrate with MailChimp, so they were back-end apps that would integrate Shopify to other software. I looked at that app store with like a merchant mindset, and I wanted functionality. So Shopify was very basic at the time. I think I was store number like 6,000 something, and now they're like 1.8 million stores they have. But so they didn't have a lot of the features that they have now. And there was no apps for any promotional front end stuff. It was all just integrations. The first app the function I wanted to do was actually product comparison. So how when you're shopping and like if you're looking at a backpack, you can click 3 backpacks and they all come up and you can compare size, weight, whatever. I wanted to do that. There was no way to do that. So I started looking into building that. Turns out it was going to be quite complicated because the metadata structure in Shopify wasn't quite ready for it yet. So honestly, like me and a couple friends, we said, well, hey, let's get together and build. What's the easiest thing we can build that would be really simple? And we thought, well, what about just an upsell app? Let's just a simple upsell app. So it was an experiment at first. I wanted to use the software we were building for our store. My buddies, like one of them was best man at my wedding. One of the guys I played volleyball with in university. It was a group of friends just trying something. And all the apps we built early on, like the first one was an upsell app. The second one was for like bulk pricing and promotions. The next one was for like flash sales and like store-wide discounts that you could flip a sale on your store off and on. All of these apps lived on the front end of the store, which to be honest, like when we first launched Upsell, Shopify wasn't really happy about it because it took down the platform multiple times because it lived on the front end of the store. And so there was Chive, Keep Calm and Chive On. They were one of Shopify's like early big brands, and they used our Upsell app, and every time they ran a sale, if there was 100,000 people on their site and there was 100,000 people clicking add to cart, and it did an API call to check, what product should be offered, that took down Shopify servers. And this happened a lot because there was no throttling to like how many APIs calls could be done per minute or per second. And so I remember that, that Shopify, they actually said, this is not the way that the APIs were designed to be used. They were done for like back-end batch jobs. So Shopify was actually quite torn on it. But merchants loved it. Like it was the number one ranked app. It like all 5-star reviews, and it was getting crazy installs. And so Shopify worked around that, and they came out with, like API throttling and different things to make sure that an app couldn't take down the whole ecosystem, which definitely now is the case. And so it was, we just had this long list of cool things we wanted to build that would make stores more money, because I was thinking of it like a merchant. Like we still had the stores. We ran the stores until 2016 or 2015, and then we ended up selling them, and then just focused on software. But for a long time, we were store owners and app builders.
Very cool. Nothing like a good Chive t-shirt sale to take down and stress test an app and a platform.
Yeah, they were, that was fun.
Yeah. I think, as Austin kind of hit on, you having that merchant mentality and that background, and it sounds like you were just coding on the side, or maybe you went to university for that. Did you just pick up the development side of it as well? Were you actually
two of the partners? So there's 4 of us. So 2 of them are developers. One was a designer, and I was the like e-commerce marketing guy. So between like the 4 of us, we've kind of had the skill sets required to be successful. And I see that a lot. Like I see someone start developing, but they don't have any concept of how to market the product. And, you see them in forums all the time. And it's like, hey, I got this idea for this app, but or people have great ideas but they don't know how to build it. So I'm a big proponent of partnerships, and even we had a 4-way partnership, completely equal. We all, I know partnerships that can have its pros and cons, but I don't know if I would do it. I think a 2-way partnership would be hard. But when it's more than 2,
right,
you're never it's never about you. It's never, and there was times where my idea didn't win, and that's okay. And there was other times where someone else's, but we always came to a consensus and discussed things and had healthy debate. But yeah, so my contribution was all the marketing and kind of the ideas and then all of the a lot of the business stuff. And then we had a fantastic designer and 2 great developers. So we were able to hit the ground running without having to hire developers or for a while.
That's huge. And people you trusted, like you said, a good buddy of yours and 4 people, really, it sounds like you guys had an A team, really having all those kind of covered. I'm curious, really I think you guys are coming up on 10 years in business, somewhere around there.
Yeah, right? Pretty close. Yeah.
$27 million you guys just raised, right? 450 employees. How has your role kind of evolved over this past decade? Obviously, startup life, maybe talking through just some inflection points in Bold, right? Whether it was raising or a big new hire that kind of allowed you to focus on other things, or you stepping into a new role. Just as another, business owner myself, just curious to hear that journey and what those inflection points might be and how related to how you kind of added value to the company.
Yeah, it's been, it's been an interesting learning journey, and really learning about yourself. So when you start a business, you do everything. You find ways, you wear multiple hats, you do the accounting, you do the hiring, you do the support, you do the marketing, you do the software development, you do the legal, you do the sales, you literally do everything. And then, piece by piece, as you hire, you keep replacing a little bit of what you do. Some people have a hard time with that. And I'll be honest, there were certain things I had a hard time, replacing something I did, someone else doing it, because each time you're giving up a little bit of control. But I think what I learned over the years is control isn't what makes a business successful. A business is an asset. And if you have an asset, if you invest in a company in the stock market, you would want the best people running that company. You want the best CEO, the best CFO, the best product managers, the best CMOs. You wouldn't want to run it. So then why, just because you start a company, nothing in that qualifies you to be the best person to do any of it. It's you had a good idea, you started it. And I think that's really hard for a lot of founders. You often see, and they don't want to let go of reins of certain areas, and it ends up being the downfall. And so I think everyone kind of struggles with that a little bit through the years. And I certainly did. I think the other founders did, but we fortunately all got to a headspace where, we wanted to do what was absolutely best for the company. And I think we all one time kind of looked at each other and said, at some point, we're all going to be replaced. There's going to be someone better. There's going to be a better CMO. There's going to be a better CTO. There's going to be a better CEO. There doesn't that. It's not about us. It's about the company. And we had to decide to always do what was best for the company. The company is an asset. We want to grow it. We want to, by growing it, it serves our customers better and helps brands. It may or may not be us, but I think it's really, really important to have that mentality. And if you partner with someone, to make sure they have that mentality as well too, because otherwise there'll be a ceiling, and the ceiling will be you. The ceiling will be your level of expertise or how much you can do, but you'll be the bottleneck. And so we kind of hit that. I remember early on, actually around 60 employees, we were still doing everything. And we actually didn't even give ourselves titles. We wanted to just be the directors, because we thought, well, we don't need a CEO or CTO or CMO. We're just like, 4 dudes starting a business. And that was cool for a while, but it actually got confusing for our staff after a while because they didn't know who to talk to, and people didn't know, like, you have to kind of divide and conquer. And it's like it's like an army. You have different troops doing different things. And so then we went through like, oh, well, who's going to be the CEO or who's going to be this? And then there was like that stage that's hard. And then, but we definitely, yeah. So anyways, I got around 60 or 70 people on, I remember that. And we got through that. But I could see like that breaking apart at that point where some founders start and you're just friends and you're just co-founders and you don't have titles. And, but at some point you have to get past that. So that was critical for us.
Yeah. And I completely agree, right? I mean, that's the only way you can scale a business is hire good, smart people around you, ideally better than you every time you do, right? Hiring, going to 450 people from, 4, I'm curious. We're going through some hiring, we've been hiring for a while now. Any secrets, any tips, tricks? I know you just, you brought on a CEO, right? You brought on some high level executive type talent. I'm curious, where do you find them? How do you vet them? Any kind of tips and tricks for other business owners out there?
It's probably something that we learned is like you're early on, you try to like hire based off of skill and like qualification, and you try to hire like the smartest person and maybe who's affordable, or the last couple of years we've really been hiring for like for personality and people who are curious. People we hire for potential. We hire for people who we do a lot of like extracurricular stuff. Like we actually don't even necessarily care of if they have a degree in software development or not. But if they've been coding since they were a kid and they built the software for their high school basketball team to track stats, like that's more interesting to us than maybe like the project that they got an A on in university or something. But it really is a team sport. And we have I actually encourage anyone listening to just Google Bold Builders Code. So we have this, we call it our Builders Code. It's essentially like our values and principles that we live by. And it's how we hire, how we fire, how we grow, how we make decisions. It's kind of like a slide deck. But one of the things we say in it is it's a team sport. Like great teams win Super Bowls, players don't. And we've had a few really, really good players actually that we've had to let go over the years because they may have been the strongest developer in the city, but they talked down to everyone around them and they made people around them feel small or feel stupid or feel, and I don't care how great someone is. This is a team sport. And, so keep that in mind. Like just keep that you have to be a team. And so when you're hiring, look for traits that you think will make someone a good team member. They don't necessarily have to be the absolute best, and that's okay. But how will they be on the team? And one other thing I'll say on hiring that we went through and struggled with and kind of overcame was like, I don't know, like depending what stage people are listening at, but if you're in like if you have 5 employees or 10 employees or even just a couple, the thing that sometimes goes through your head early on when you're starting is you grow a little bit, you're starting to make a little bit of money. And then it's like, shoot, I gotta hire someone and that's going to eat up those profits. And then you grow a little bit more and you grow a little bit more and you're like, I got to hire someone. Like, unless you raise a whole bunch of capital really on and you're going to hire 100 people in the first year. But this was our growth story. It was like, we started to bring in some revenue and then we hired. And then like every time we hired someone, it kind of hurt because we never paid ourselves anymore for the first like 5 years. Like because we just kept hiring. And I remember one day we said like, man, are we going to just like keep hiring or are we going to like make money at this? Cause, right. And you have to know what type of business you are. And I know people that run very like a 3 or 5 person agency or team, and they're very profitable, and they have no ambition to grow crazy. Maybe it's 10 or 12 people, but they're kind of like, this is it. I don't have to hire multiple leaders. I know everybody kind of reports to me, and we're very profitable. And I'm going to, if we make extra profits, I'll just say no to business. Like, this is as high as you want to go. Or you put everything back in the company and don't worry about necessarily like being profitable now to extend that out later. And that was the approach we took. Like we said, let's grow this as big as we can. So every time we can afford, we hire more people, because people kind of like equaled growth. We could build more products, we could support more merchants, and let's build this and build this company as big as we can. And every single person at Bold is also an owner, like right from the receptionist, like every single person owns a piece of it. And we wanted to see how big of an impact we could make in the lives of as many people as possible. So our customers are one thing, but our employees, we also wanted to make a big impact in their lives. And so everyone's on board, and everyone's, we're delaying gratification now for gratification later and pumping it all back in. And but had we, every single time we hired someone, had there been that painful conversation, oh, do we need to hire this person? Wow, we could, like, you just have to decide, okay, what type of company are we? Both are perfectly fine. I know people really doing well with 10 people. They'll never be bigger than that, but they're doing fantastic, super profitable. And then there's other people that put it all in. It's important just to decide that.
Sure. Yeah. Having that long-term vision, if that makes sense for you guys, right? To be a long-term business where, like you said, grow as big as possible. That was the goal, the mission that you guys set forth. Everyone's on the same page. That's such a tool, and it's really a competitive advantage in the business, right? To be able to get everyone on the same page and then make things so much easier on those decisions, like you said, not be second guessing on them. Seems like you guys have done a great job of that. I just Googled the builder's code, and you're doing everything to kind of reinforce that, right? It's not just saying we want to be the biggest company tomorrow. It's putting in things like the Bold builder's code. I see you guys do a lot of giving back, right? I mean, that's a big part. It's right there in your navigation on your homepage. I'm curious, I might as well skip down to this question. I mean, I'm curious, any kind of, share some ideas or some thoughts or some stories in general around giving back. I'd love to hear more about that. We don't see that a lot as prominent as it is on your website and in your culture.
Yeah, we just decided early on that if this company, there was like a few tenets that we had to like live by. It's like, if it's not going to be a fun place to work, if we're not going to be able to give back to our community around us, if we're not going to be able to impact the lives of our employees, like, then why do it? Because at the time, we all could have actually made more money by working somewhere else. Like we all had like great jobs. It wasn't like the story where we were, in college eating macaroni and trying to start this. Like we all had wives and kids and doing fine. So we had to have like some values that, like, if we're going to do this, this is how we're going to do it. And so giving back to the community was like really important to us. And I think it's important for people to decide that early on. It's an easy decision to make when you're making a couple $1,000 a month or whatever, but it's a really hard decision to make when the numbers are high. And, early on, so we kind of have this 1-1-1 pledge. We do a lot of stuff, but one of them was early on this, it's 1% of profits, 1% of people, and 1% of product. So what that means is 1% of our profit every year, we donate. 1% of people is 1% of their time. It works out to 20 hours roughly per staff, because there's roughly 2,000 working hours in a year. But 450 staff, each volunteering 20 hours a year, that's 2.5 full days. Like we pretty much have people, like we have a person who just coordinates volunteering, because it's like a full-time job. Like people are building houses, and they're in soup kitchens, and they're in like painting park benches. They're like, it's just like everything you can think. It's actually hard to sometimes find enough things to volunteer for.
Right.
And then product is, there's a lot of charities that maybe need help with their website or with, subscriptions is a big thing for us. And subscriptions also work for donations, recurring donations. So a lot of times charities they want to accept recurring donations, and like our software can do that. So that kind of falls under like the product category. I just think it's the reason that you do business is to affect the lives of people around you. Sorry, I have to get some water here.
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's great, especially if you kind of make excuses where I'm so busy, we've got so much going on, and then if you just put that 1-1-1 kind of pledge in place, then it kind of holds people accountable.
And we didn't invent that. That was Mark Benioff from Salesforce. Like they started that. And I remember he said the same thing. Like he started it early because he knew that once Salesforce grew, it would be hard to implement something like that, but he got it passed through the board early on.
Yeah.
And, that was an important thing to him. And I remember seeing somewhere like he challenged, businesses to also take this 1-1-1 pledge.
Yeah.
And you can Google it. They've got a page dedicated to it. You can sign that you're doing it. And they had some crazy stats. It was like, if every business in America took this 1-1-1 pledge, it was like the impact that it would have was enormous. So anyway, that was it. Giving back and is core to who we are.
Very cool. Very cool. I want to shift gears just a little bit. There's one question I really want to get to. I was super interested in, you guys started as an app company, right? You're known for your apps. You kind of had this collection of apps. You each had their own kind of name and branding to some extent, but everyone knew it was bold. There seemed to be a shift to headless, right? And the branding behind that. I think you guys use Modular Commerce as like the branding. I'm curious in your go-to-market, how that shifted, your thoughts on headless and how that's a core strategy of yours versus being like an app company. Love to hear that, kind of be the fly on the wall on those decisions that were made.
Yeah. It really started but at the request of our customers, to be honest. Like, so we started getting more and more brands looking to build. I use the word modular sometimes more than headless. Like, I mean, headless is essentially just extending your front end experience to somewhere else. Like it, oftentimes it's referred to as like your e-commerce platform is one thing, and you use a different content management system for your front end. But I think it also is extending it to voice or to SMS or to chat or to iOS, like, or mobile apps. Like, it's just extending the front end of your shopping experience somewhere else. And then modular commerce is this aspect of leveraging, like if you think about e-commerce, there's a bunch of core components you need to do commerce. Like, you need order management software. You need something to manage orders. You need a CRM, like your customer relationship management software. You need a CMS. You need something to like design the front end of your store, whatever it is. You need a PIM, your product information management software. A lot of brands have like ERP where all their database and products live. There's like these core modules. And so we started to see this happens even when I would say brands using an e-commerce platform. I would say they're still modular in some aspect. Like, they might be using Shopify for their products and their storefront, but they might be using ShipStation or OrderBot or you name it for order management. And that's quite common that people don't use Shopify's order management. So that's a module. They might be using something else to design the front end of their store. That's a module. So we started to see there's this kind of decoupling, and this happens in software. If you look at anything, like, things are coupled and decoupled, and that's kind of like how software goes over years.
Continuum,
it goes,
right?
Yeah, everything
ERP,
comes together.
The apps, the like a operations platform, back to connectors.
Yeah, and I think we're just starting to see this again in e-commerce, and so larger brands kept approaching us and wanting to have, like, they might be on some legacy software that they're using, but they want to like move out certain sections of it. They don't want to fully migrate because it's so integrated into their like 3,000 retail stores across the US. They can't just like migrate to Shopify. It's not like that easy. Like they want to move a component of it. They want to now layer in another component. And it's really a great way to approach, like I'm talking about like large enterprise brands, like to approach upgrading their stack is in a modular kind of like piece by piece way. So we've really focused in the last couple of years at making all of our products, and it specifically around the checkout experience, to make them modular so that they're all API first. So you could use, so like, let's just take our subscription app as an example. Like you can use it out of the box. Like you can install it in Shopify and have a subscription on your products in probably seconds. It installs automatically. There's a default widget on the front end. There's a default customer portal, or you could install it and use nothing of the front end of our app. You could have an e-commerce experience that was 100% SMS. Doesn't even have a front end, or maybe it's only, actually, we have a very, very large brand right now that with thousands of retail locations, building out subscription and extending it to point of sale because they want their customers to be able to subscribe on their website, but also if they're in the store,
right.
As long as they give the email, the cashier can say, "Oh, would you want to add this to your quarterly subscription we're sending you every month?" Like if you're buying. So anyways, like we never want brands to feel like they're locked into the experience that the app gives them. They could build any front end. We are for subscriptions specific, like the subscription engine, that experience can live anywhere. Same thing for checkout. Our checkout is completely API first, has a default kind of look and feel, but you look at Staples, you look at Vera Bradley, you look at Pepsi, they're all using our checkout very different. Right. They've completely built their own front ends for it. But, in the back end, we handle, like the PCI compliance, the tax, the fraud, like a lot of the nuts and bolts. And then they build the experience they want in the front.
Yeah. The API first, approach is obviously like the best way when you can do it, when it makes the most sense. In our business, we're the same way, where, our value is in the core engine, right? And then we can't customize everything for you. And luckily we're in a world now where there's a ton of open APIs. Everything can basically be connected. A ton of really smart developers out there that can do all that customization, which wasn't really the case, 10 years ago. So this shift to API first and headless, it seems like a natural one. Just that continuum you bring up, which is interesting, because we've talked about this in a couple of podcasts. It seems to come up a lot where, it very much was everything in one spot. People made it an ERP and this was everything, and then moved to apps, and people loved apps, best in breed apps for each business function. But then you had to work in different areas for each different thing, and people didn't like that. There's been Zapier and Alloy and things like that to help slowly start connecting those apps, sync with ERP. I'm really curious to see, does that continuum just keep on forever? I mean, is it kind of keep on breaking out and coming back and breaking out and coming back? I'm just curious on what the next iteration of that is in your thought, because and I guess to maybe bring it home, like there's very much a need to want to work in one spot for one thing. And then at the same time, there's a need to want, you're not going to be the best at everything in one app. So, being able to sync those together can work to some extent, but there's obviously logging into other places. So I'm just curious. It seems like we're at that point today. Is there a next frontier of how to work better between?
I think we're still getting there. Like I think there's a lot ahead still for the modular approach. If you think about your Office suite of products, so email, you have a calendar, you have video software, so right now we're using Zoom. What do you use for email?
Yeah, Gmail, Google.
What do you use for a calendar?
Yeah, Google as well, calendar.
Okay. What do you use for documents?
Google.
Same thing for sheets?
Yeah. And some people use Excel. Yeah.
Okay. So why aren't you using Meet for this? For Google?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Best in breed.
So
right.
You have a modular approach to your Office stack right now. And it's not a huge hassle for you, probably. Like I'm the same way. I actually have the Zoom integration with my Google Calendar. When I send someone a a link or send an invite. I can choose if I want the Google Meet link or if I want the Zoom link. I typically use Google for my docs and sheets, but if it's a massive spreadsheet, I use Excel. Seems to handle large spreadsheets better. I use Gmail anyways, I have a stack of tools that creates my solution. And I don't do everything in Microsoft. I don't do everything in Google. I don't do anyway. So, but now in the office life, it's actually, they're ahead of, I would say, where we are. Like, things are pretty smooth, things integrate. Right. You can open up a Microsoft Word doc in Google Docs and it works just fine. You can open up Sheets in Excel and Sheets, and things move a lot. So I still think we have a little bit ways to go before things are really seamless, but we are getting there. And I think that will be when you can just unplug, I want to use a different order management. I unplug this, plug in another one, or swap out. I want to switch this checkout with this, or my product management. Because you're going into a different country, or you're going to a different continent, or you're going to a different currency, or different things, and you need different solutions. That's where I think there will always be a place for the, monolith closed
under
ecosystem.
One roof.
Totally. Yeah, everything. People want, and a large percentage of brands want just everything seamless, work together. And that works for probably like 80%. And that's why Shopify is very, very successful. Like, people do.
More or less, kind of where we're getting to is like, both will probably coexist next to each other for the continue, right? Like, I have an iPhone, but I use Google Maps, and it doesn't work. It always tries to get me to go into Apple Maps, and I have to go a couple extra steps to go to Google Maps.
Right.
But I'm sure if I just committed to Apple Maps, my life would be a lot more seamless. I could easily bring it up, right? Whatever. But I guess there's probably a flavor for each person, and it's really a preference thing. And it seems like that will probably continue.
And that's a little bit on Apple. Like, Apple wants you to use their maps. They want you to use they default open things in Safari. Sure. They default. So, and if there's different platforms all have different opinions on this.
Right.
Because really what a e-commerce platform is an opinionated stack. They're saying, this is what you need to use. We work a lot with Commerce Tools. I don't know if you're familiar with them or not. But they are essentially, actually, if you're speaking of our podcast, there's an episode with Commerce Tools. I can't remember which number it is, but it's with Kelly Getch. He's the CTO at Commerce Tools. They have a really, really interesting philosophy on Headless and Modular. They actually were the ones that started the MACH Alliance, which is MACH, Modular, API first, cloud-based, and Headless. And they are a suite of APIs to enable commerce in the cloud. They have no opinion on what modules are used. And so if you think about your, like, if you use AWS or Google Cloud for your server environment, when you set up an environment, you have all these different tools for security and for load balancing and different things, and you enable them. And it's like the tools are there. You can choose which ones you want to enable. They essentially are the same thing, but for commerce, like, which they have 350 different tools that you enable. There is no front end. There is no, they're cloud-based API tools to enable commerce anywhere. So, like, for example, Audi uses them in their dashboard, and you can pay for, or you can subscribe to heated seats, or you can sell things. And it's like they literally can enable commerce anywhere. So they have no opinion on how it's done. And now imagine like a phone had no opinion, and Google Maps worked just as good as Apple Maps, and Google Maps could access the home screen the same way Apple Maps can access the home screen. And so anyways, it's it'll be interesting to see. I don't know the answer to it, but platforms like Commerce Tools that are saying we have no opinion, how they succeed. And we did a build with them, Harry Rosen. I don't know if you know that they're a really big Canadian men's clothing line. Not sure if they're down there in the US, but
I saw them on your site.
Yeah. And they're on Commerce Tools, and it's really allowed them to do some really cool things that would have been very hard no matter what platform you used.
And it's an interesting, like an agnostic platform. let's business, don't let the walled garden kind of, temptation get in your way. An agnostic platform that could end up being a better model long-term if there's obviously demand there and there's a lot of efficiency in doing it. But that's more about the orchestration and making sure things work together nicely and letting other people focus on their microservices and being the best in breed there. I like that.
And both are good. There isn't a right or wrong in this. Like, I think I have friends that they are all in on the Apple ecosystem. Like Apple Music, Apple TV, Apple Watch, Apple, like the Apple Maps, like they're like, oh, it just works better together. Like, that's completely fine. Apple email, whatever, Apple, but like, I don't like using Apple Sheets. I don't even know what it's called because I don't use it, but it's horrible. Yeah. Apple numbers. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. I always know it because it pops up all the time. I have to close it out.
So, both are, but there will be like, that approach. They're just two different approaches. And I think there's space for both. I don't think one wins and one doesn't.
For sure. Completely agree. Well, cool. This has been amazing. I could probably go on much longer, but before we kind of wrap up, Austin, is there anything we didn't touch on that we probably should have?
I definitely wanted to get into just a quick little overview of Own Your Commerce. That seems like a podcast you've been doing for a good bit now. Obviously, we're on a podcast right now. Give us, what does Own Your Commerce mean to you, right? And what's maybe a couple episodes that you can shout out that you just had a good time on? And obviously, we want to make sure the listeners go and subscribe and follow you as well. So what does that podcast mean to you?
Awesome. I appreciate you giving me the chance to call it out.
Yeah, plug it.
It's been, that's it's been one of the, well, you guys probably know this. It's running a podcast. It's one of the, it takes 10 times more time than you think it does when you're starting it. Like the recording the podcast is the fun part. You get to talk to people you may have never met otherwise, but then like the landing pages, the transcriptions, the creating the autograms, creating the ads, creating the banners, getting the bios, collecting headshots from the guests. It's like, there's going to be a whole industry, and there probably is, to like help automate all these, how we have like virtual assistants. There's going to be like podcast assistants, like just they know exactly what you need to publish an episode. So it's been a challenge, but it's been really fun. So the reason we started it is probably similar to yours. Like we wanted people who were kind of forward thinking in e-commerce. So it's not really like super like how to, I don't know, like run AdWords for your e-commerce store, how to do this. Like, it's not like very, there's a lot of great podcasts out there that are like, if you're starting an e-commerce store and you want to get tips on like how to source products, how to build the best product page, or how to make sure you backlink everywhere on your site, like that, like that's not Own Your Commerce. I felt there was a lot of those out there. So most of the conversations, we just say that they're like thoughtful conversations with e-commerce thought leaders on what's happening in e-commerce. And I've really, really enjoyed it. We've been fortunate to have some great guests on. We're probably going to wrap up season 1. I think we're at episode 23. We'll do 24, and then we'll have a second season. If I had to say some of the ones, well, that one with Commerce Tools is a really good one. I think Kelly is, he's got a lot of really interesting thoughts on e-commerce that like are completely different than how we might think about it. And I did, I don't know the episode numbers, but one with Robbie Kilman Baxter, who she's consulted with Netflix, Oracle. She's like a subscription speaker. She's written a book called The Membership Economy, The Forever Transaction. So we really dove into like what makes subscriptions valuable, and that I learned a lot on that one as well too. And I consider myself to know a lot about subscriptions. So I'd probably call out those two.
Yeah, I took a list. The Harley one was a good one.
And the Harley one was great.
Yeah, yes, anytime I see him, it's like, and then it was you guys, and I was like, I got to listen to this one. This is one that caught me. But yeah,
Harley's he's just a great speaker, fun guy. Harley, like we go way back. Like he helped us like get started with Shopify in 2012. Like when we were just getting started and we were just 4 of us, like I remember one day he's like, what can I do to help you guys? And like, this was like, Harley was like, Shopify was struggling for money back then too. Like they were probably like 60 or 70 employees. and he said something like, would a $15,000 like loan help you guys or what? Like he was like, just wow. Like he really went out of his way. Like, and even though it's only $15,000, but like, you know, 4 guys, like, hey, that pays for another couple months of our salary. Like it's, we were at that stage, and he's been a big proponent of like the partner ecosystem over the years, and probably wouldn't be what it is without him. So
yeah, that's a good point. And I feel like we're starting to see that more and more of this enemies and frenemies and partners, and like where we all mix in the system of SaaS. And it's great to see that it seems like a lot of those conversations of just helping each other, regardless of if there's some overlap in what we do, is still a thing. And it seems like that's happening a lot.
Yeah, just the fact that Shopify has really doubled down the partner ecosystem with that first $1 million before they start taking a rev share. I mean, that was an awesome move on their part. Really good stuff. Anything else, Jay, that we didn't touch on that we probably should have, or?
Well, I'll just say on the partner side of things, and like, you know what, it's e-commerce is still very much a rising tide. As a percentage of total retail in the US, it's around 18 or 19%. It jumped up a lot in last year with COVID, of course, but there's a ton of room for growth in e-commerce, and there isn't a single, like we have competitors, but they're also our friends. Like, I don't, you know, if there's anyone in the space listening, it's you'll be 10 times ahead by working with people. It's not a pie that if your piece is bigger, someone else's piece is smaller. E-commerce is growing, and it's rising tide, and rising tides rise all boats, right? So
yeah, there you go. All right, well, Jay, appreciate the time, man. A lot of good content here. We agree. I think it's great to have this kind of like knowledge leader. We just come in, have good conversations. So we really appreciate your time. And hopefully we can get you back on soon. And then maybe we'll get on Own Your Commerce.
I was thinking that. Yeah.
So, no, that's great. Thanks for jumping on, Jay. Appreciate it. And everybody out there listening, make sure to subscribe and follow us. We're on Spotify and iTunes and Stitcher. We upload to YouTube. And obviously go check out Jay, Bull Commerce, Own Your Commerce, subscribe to their podcast. As always, thanks, Jay. Thanks, Travis. And stay tuned for the next one.